Jack Thompson was a writer who lived in New York City. He had a small apartment and was always trying to write the perfect novel. But lately, things were not going well for Jack. He was feeling down on his luck. One day, Jack heard a knock on his door. He opened it to find a delivery man standing there. "Mr. Thompson?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me," Jack replied. The delivery man handed Jack a package. It was big and had holes in the sides. Jack was curious. What could this be? He thought. Jack brought the package inside and opened it carefully. Inside, he saw a small, fluffy dog with golden fur and bright eyes. The dog wagged its tail and looked up at Jack with a happy expression. "Hello, little guy," Jack said, smiling. The dog jumped out of the box and started running around the apartment. Jack laughed and shook his head. Next, Jack found a note inside the box. It said, "Dear Sophia, this is your new dog buddy. Love, Grandma." Jack was puzzled. "Who is Sophia?" he wondered. He looked at the dog and said, "Well, Buddy, it looks like you came to the wrong place." Buddy barked happily and ran around the room. Jack sighed. "I guess you can stay here for now," he said. Buddy seemed to like the idea and wagged his tail even more. Jack sat down at his desk and started to think. He knew he had to find Buddy's real owner, but he didn't know where to start. After thinking for a while, Jack decided to go and find Sophia. He put on his coat, picked up Buddy, and they left the apartment. They went to the apartment next door, where Sophia lived. Jack knocked on the door, but no one answered. He tried again and again, but it was clear that no one was home. "Well, Buddy, it looks like we have a problem," Jack said, looking at the dog. Buddy just barked and wagged his tail. Jack decided to keep Buddy for a little while until he could find Sophia. But he didn't know that this was the start of a crazy adventure with Buddy. Jack sat at his desk trying to work on his new novel, but it was hard to concentrate because Buddy was causing trouble. The little dog was running around the apartment, jumping on the furniture and barking loudly. "Buddy, stop that," Jack said, but Buddy didn't listen. Instead, he ran into the kitchen and started chewing on Jack's favorite shoes. Jack jumped up from his chair and ran to the kitchen. "No, Buddy, those are my best shoes," he shouted. He quickly grabbed the shoes from Buddy and put them on a high shelf. Buddy looked at Jack with his bright eyes, and Jack couldn't stay angry for long. "You're a handful, aren't you?" he said, smiling. After that, Jack tried to get back to his writing. He sat down and opened his laptop, but when he looked up, he saw Buddy knocking over a lamp. "Buddy!" Jack shouted, jumping up again. He caught the lamp just in time and set it back on the table. "You're going to be the end of me," he said, laughing. Buddy wagged his tail and barked happily. He was having fun, even if Jack wasn't. That evening, Jack decided to take Buddy for a walk, hoping it would calm him down. They walked around the neighborhood, and Buddy seemed to enjoy sniffing everything he saw. As they walked, they met some of Jack's neighbors. One of them, an elderly woman named Mrs. Johnson, smiled at Buddy and said, "What a cute little dog you have, Jack." "Thanks, Mrs. Johnson," Jack said. "But Buddy isn't mine. I'm trying to find his owner." "Well, he seems to like you," Mrs. Johnson replied with a smile. Jack smiled back, but he knew he couldn't keep Buddy. He needed to find Sophia, but it wasn't going to be easy. When they returned home, Jack was tired, and so was Buddy. The little dog curled up on Jack's bed and fell asleep immediately. Jack sighed and looked at Buddy. "I guess you can stay here for now," he said. As Jack got ready for bed, he thought about his day. It had been full of chaos, but he couldn't help but smile. Buddy was causing trouble, but he was also making Jack's life a bit more interesting. The next morning, Jack woke up early. He looked over at Buddy, who was still sleeping on his bed. Jack smiled and thought, maybe today we'll find Sophia. After a quick breakfast, Jack and Buddy set out to find Buddy's owner. Jack went to the apartment next door, where he believed Sophia lived. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. Jack tried again, but still, there was no response. He was about to give up when he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw a woman carrying a box. "Hi, are you Sophia?" Jack asked hopefully. The woman smiled and shook her head. No, I'm Mrs. Peterson. I live down the hall. Are you looking for someone? Yes, I'm looking for a woman named Sophia, Jack explained. I think this dog, Buddy, belongs to her. Mrs. Peterson looked sad. Oh, Sophia moved out last week. She went to live with her daughter in the suburbs. Jack felt disappointed. Do you have her new address? He asked. Mrs. Peterson shook her head. I'm sorry, I don't, but maybe you can ask the building manager. Jack thanked Mrs. Peterson and went to see the building manager, Mr. Jenkins. When Jack explained the situation, Mr. Jenkins scratched his head. I do have her daughter's phone number, Mr. Jenkins said. I'll call her and let her know you have her dog. Jack felt relieved. Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins dialed the number and spoke to Sophia's daughter. When he hung up, he looked at Jack and smiled. Sophia's daughter said she would come by tomorrow to pick up Buddy. Jack was happy but a little sad at the same time. Buddy had brought chaos into his life, but Jack was starting to enjoy having the little dog around. Back at the apartment, Jack sat down to write, but Buddy had other plans. The little dog started running around again, knocking over papers and barking loudly. Buddy, come on! Jack laughed, trying to catch the dog. You're going home tomorrow, but today you're staying out of trouble. Jack and Buddy spent the rest of the day playing and having fun. Even though Buddy was causing chaos, Jack felt a sense of joy that he hadn't felt in a long time. The next morning, Jack woke up with a mix of excitement and sadness. Today, Buddy was going home. Jack had grown quite fond of the little dog, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to say goodbye. As he made breakfast, Buddy wagged his tail, looking up at Jack with bright eyes. Well, Buddy, Jack said, today you get to go home. Let's make the most of our time together. Jack and Buddy went for a walk around the neighborhood. Buddy was curious about everything, sniffing every corner and chasing after birds. Jack laughed and shook his head as Buddy's energy seemed endless. While walking, they met Jack's neighbor, Mr. Williams. He was a kind, elderly man who loved talking to everyone. Hello, Jack. I see you have a new friend, Mr. Williams said, smiling at Buddy. Yes, but Buddy is only staying for a short time, Jack replied. He's going home today. Mr. Williams nodded. Well, it seems like Buddy likes you. Maybe you should keep him. Jack smiled but didn't say anything. He wasn't sure he was ready for a dog, especially one as active as Buddy. As they walked, Buddy suddenly pulled away from Jack and ran into a nearby store. Jack followed him and found Buddy jumping on a young woman. The woman laughed and petted Buddy. Well, hello there, she said. Jack apologized and introduced himself. The woman's name was Emily and she worked at the store. Buddy seems to like you, Jack said. Well, I love dogs, Emily replied with a smile. She told Jack that she worked at a local animal shelter and that she often fostered dogs. They talked for a while, and Jack enjoyed their conversation. As they continued their walk, Jack noticed that Buddy seemed to be having a great time. The little dog was full of energy and joy, and Jack realized how much he would miss him. In the afternoon, Jack returned to his apartment with Buddy. He looked at the little dog, who was now sleeping on the couch. You know, Buddy, Jack said, I'm going to miss you. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Jack opened it to find Sophia's daughter, Laura, standing there. She was happy to see Buddy and thanked Jack for taking care of him. Buddy was a gift for my mum, Laura explained, but when she moved, we thought it was best to give him to someone who could take care of him. Jack felt a pang of sadness as Laura took Buddy. He watched as she left, feeling like he had lost a friend. Jack sat in his apartment, feeling a bit lonely. Without Buddy, the place seemed quiet and empty. He missed the little dog's playful antics and the way Buddy would curl up beside him while he wrote. To distract himself, Jack decided to work on his new novel. He sat at his desk, but his mind kept wandering back to Buddy. He smiled as he remembered the dog's funny behavior, like when Buddy knocked over the lamp or chewed up his favorite shoes. As Jack thought about Buddy, an idea came to him. What if I write a story about a dog like Buddy? he thought. He grabbed his notebook and started jotting down ideas. Jack wrote about a mischievous dog who goes on adventures in the city. He laughed as he imagined the dog getting into all sorts of trouble, but also making people laugh and smile. The words flowed easily, and Jack felt excited about his new story. He wrote late into the night, inspired by the memory of Buddy. For the first time in a while, he felt hopeful about his writing. The next day, Jack went for a walk to clear his mind. As he walked, he saw Emily, the woman from the store, sitting at a cafe. She waved at him, and Jack walked over. "Hello, Jack," Emily said. "How's your writing going?" "Actually, it's going great," Jack replied with a smile. He told Emily about his new story, inspired by Buddy. Emily laughed and said, "That sounds wonderful. I'd love to read it sometime." They talked for a while, and Jack found that he enjoyed talking to Emily. She was funny and kind, and she loved animals. They decided to meet again later that week to talk more about Jack's story. Back at his apartment, Jack felt happy and inspired. He continued to write, feeling that he was finally on the right track. He knew that Buddy had brought chaos into his life, but he also brought joy and inspiration. As the days went by, Jack wrote more and more. His story grew, and he felt proud of his work. He met with Emily often, and they became good friends. Jack realized that Buddy had brought more than just chaos into his life. The little dog had brought friendship and inspiration as well. Jack felt a new sense of purpose as he worked on his novel, inspired by Buddy. He continued to meet with Emily at the cafe, where they would chat about writing, dogs, and life. Jack found himself looking forward to these meetings. One day, Jack decided to take a break from writing and visit Emily at the animal shelter where she worked. When he arrived, Emily was playing with a group of puppies. She smiled when she saw Jack and waved him over. "Hi, Jack. Meet our new arrivals," Emily said, pointing to the puppies. They were small, fluffy, and full of energy, just like Buddy. Jack laughed as the puppies played around him. "They remind me of Buddy," he said with a smile. Emily laughed too. "Yes, they do," she said. "How's your novel going?" "It's going well," Jack replied. "Thanks to Buddy, I finally feel inspired again." Emily looked at Jack with a kind smile. "That's great, Jack. I'm glad you're doing well." Jack and Emily spent the afternoon together, playing with the puppies and talking. Jack learned that Emily had always loved animals and that she enjoyed helping them find new homes. He admired her kindness and her passion for her work. As they talked, a little dog with golden fur and bright eyes ran up to them. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he realized it was Buddy. "Buddy!" Jack exclaimed, kneeling down to pet the dog. Buddy wagged his tail and barked happily. "Buddy missed you," Emily said with a smile. "Laura brought him to the shelter because Sophia felt he would be happier with someone who could spend more time with him." Jack looked at Buddy and then at Emily. "I missed him too," he said. "I think he belongs with me." Emily smiled and nodded. "I think you're right, Jack." Jack felt a wave of happiness as he looked at Buddy. He knew now that Buddy was meant to be a part of his life. He thanked Emily for taking care of Buddy and promised to take him home. Jack and Emily walked back to Jack's apartment with Buddy. They laughed and talked, and Jack felt a sense of joy and contentment. He realized that meeting Emily and having Buddy in his life were some of the best things that had happened to him in a long time. Back at his apartment, Jack sat down to write, and Buddy curled up beside him. Jack smiled as he looked at Buddy, feeling grateful for the unexpected gift that had brought so much joy into his life. One evening, as Jack was writing, he heard a knock on the door. When he opened it, he found a familiar face. It was Sophia, the elderly woman who was Buddy's original owner. She smiled warmly at Jack. "Hello, Jack," she said. "I wanted to see how Buddy is doing." Jack invited Sophia in, and Buddy greeted her excitedly, wagging his tail and jumping up to her. Sophia laughed and petted him gently. She looked at Jack with a fond smile. "It looks like he has found a good home." Jack offered Sophia a cup of tea, and they sat down to talk. Sophia told Jack her story. She explained that Buddy had been a gift from her late husband. After her husband passed away, Buddy became her constant companion. Buddy was a wonderful gift, Sophia said. But when I moved in with my daughter, it was hard to take care of him. I wanted him to be happy, so I sent him to you. Jack listened carefully. He felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. He understood now why Buddy meant so much to Sophia. He told her about his struggles as a writer and how Buddy had brought inspiration and joy into his life. I'm glad Buddy has found a new friend, Sophia said with a smile. And I'm glad you have found your inspiration. As they talked, Jack realized how important Buddy was to both of them. He knew that he wanted to keep Buddy but also wanted to make sure Sophia was happy. You're always welcome to visit Buddy, Jack said. He's a special dog, and you should see him any time you want. Sophia's eyes filled with tears, and she hugged Jack. Thank you, she said. That means a lot to me. Buddy seemed to sense the emotional moment and jumped up, licking both Jack and Sophia. They laughed, and the mood lightened. Jack felt grateful for the visit. He knew now that Buddy was meant to stay with him. He also felt happy that Sophia was okay with the arrangement. That night, Jack sat down to write and felt a renewed sense of purpose. He wrote about Buddy and their adventure, knowing that the little dog had brought something special into his life. Jack woke up the next morning feeling content. Buddy, as usual, was curled up beside him, snoring softly. Jack smiled as he remembered the heartwarming visit with Sophia the day before. However, as Jack got up to start his day, his phone rang. It was Laura, Sophia's daughter. She sounded worried. Jack, I need to talk to you about Buddy, she said. Jack's heart sank. Is something wrong? He asked. Sophia isn't doing well, Laura said sadly. She misses Buddy so much. She keeps talking about him and asking when he'll come back. I think it might be best if Buddy comes to live with us. Jack was silent for a moment. He loved Buddy and couldn't imagine life without him now. But he also cared about Sophia, who was Buddy's first owner. He faced a difficult decision. Jack looked at Buddy, who was wagging his tail happily. He sighed and said to Laura, "Let me think about it." Jack spent the day trying to decide what to do. He took Buddy for a walk and watched as the little dog ran and played, bringing smiles to everyone they met. Jack realized how much joy Buddy brought into his life and the lives of others. He visited Emily at the animal shelter and told her about his problem. Emily listened and then said, "Jack, you have to do what's best for Buddy and Sophia, but remember, you're a part of Buddy's life now too." Jack knew she was right. That evening, he decided to take Buddy to visit Sophia at the retirement home, hoping to see how she and Buddy would react. When they arrived, Sophia's face lit up as she saw Buddy. The little dog ran to her, barking happily and wagging his tail. Sophia laughed and hugged him, her eyes shining with joy. Jack watched as Buddy stayed close to Sophia, comforting her. He realized then that Buddy belonged with Sophia, where he could bring her happiness and comfort. With a heavy heart, Jack said to Sophia, "I think Buddy should stay with you. He belongs here." Sophia hugged Jack and thanked him. "You're doing the right thing, Jack," she said. "But you're welcome to visit us any time." Jack felt sad, but also relieved. He knew he had made the right choice. As he left the retirement home, he looked back and saw Sophia and Buddy, both happy and content. He smiled, knowing he had done something good. The next day, Jack felt a little lonely without Buddy. The apartment was quiet, and there was no playful barking or running around. He missed the little dog and wondered how he was doing with Sophia. After some thought, Jack decided to visit Sophia and Buddy at the retirement home. He brought along a bag of dog treats, hoping Buddy would be excited to see him. When Jack arrived, he saw Sophia sitting in the garden with Buddy. The little dog was wagging his tail and seemed happy. Sophia smiled when she saw Jack. "Hello, Jack. Look who came to visit us," she said. Buddy barked and ran to Jack, jumping up and licking his face. Jack laughed and petted him, feeling happy to see his little friend again. He sat down next to Sophia and they talked. Sophia looked healthier and happier than before. "Buddy has been such a joy," she said. "He reminds me of my husband and brings back so many good memories." Jack felt glad that Buddy was making Sophia happy. He played with Buddy and watched as the little dog ran around the garden, chasing birds and barking excitedly. While they were talking, Emily arrived with some other dogs from the shelter. She smiled when she saw Jack. "I thought you might be here," she said. Jack introduced Emily to Sophia, and they all talked together. Emily shared stories about the other dogs and how they were finding new homes. She and Jack laughed and joked, and Jack felt a sense of happiness. As they talked, Buddy sat close to Sophia, his head on her lap. Jack saw how much Buddy meant to Sophia and felt good about his decision. He knew that Buddy was in the right place. When it was time to leave, Jack hugged Sophia and promised to visit again. He also invited Emily to join them, and they made plans to visit Sophia and Buddy together. Back at his apartment, Jack felt content. He missed Buddy, but he knew the little dog was happy and loved. He sat down to write, feeling inspired by the day. Jack wrote about Buddy and Sophia, creating a story filled with love, friendship, and joy. He knew that Buddy had brought something special into his life, and he wanted to share that with the world. Jack continued to visit Sophia and Buddy regularly at the retirement home. He enjoyed spending time with them and felt a sense of joy whenever he saw how happy Buddy made Sophia. One day, when Jack arrived, Sophia was sitting in the garden with Buddy. She looked up at Jack with a smile. "Hello, Jack," she said. "Buddy and I have been waiting for you." Jack smiled and sat down. Buddy jumped up and barked happily, running around them. Jack laughed and petted him, feeling a sense of warmth and love. As they talked, Sophia looked at Jack and said, "Jack, I think it's time for you to take Buddy home." Jack was surprised. "But Sophia, Buddy makes you so happy," he said. Sophia nodded. "Yes, but I can see how much you love him too," she replied. "Buddy belongs with you, Jack. He's brought joy to both of us, but I think he needs to be with you." Jack felt a mix of emotions. He loved Buddy and wanted to keep him, but he also knew that Buddy made Sophia happy. He didn't know what to do. Just then, Emily arrived. She smiled at Jack and said, "I think Buddy should decide." They looked at Buddy, who was happily wagging his tail. Emily took a few steps back and said, "Come on, Buddy." Buddy looked at Emily, then at Sophia, and then at Jack. He barked and ran to Jack, jumping up and licking his face. Jack laughed and hugged Buddy, feeling a sense of joy. "Well, I guess Buddy has made his choice," he said, smiling at Sophia and Emily. Sophia smiled and nodded. "I'm happy for you, Jack," she said. "Buddy belongs with you." Jack felt grateful and happy. He knew that Buddy was meant to be a part of his life. He thanked Sophia for understanding and promised to bring Buddy to visit her often. That evening, Jack took Buddy home, feeling a sense of joy and contentment. Buddy curled up beside him as he wrote, and Jack knew that he had made the right choice. As he wrote, Jack felt inspired by Buddy's choice and knew that the little dog had brought something special into his life. He felt excited about the future and looked forward to the adventures that lay ahead. Jack was thrilled to have Buddy back in his life. The little dog was once again a happy and playful presence in Jack's apartment. But while Jack was happy to have Buddy, he also felt a little sad for Sophia. She had given up Buddy to make Jack happy, and Jack wanted to show her how much he appreciated her kindness. Jack decided to plan a special day for Sophia and Buddy. He called up Emily, who agreed to help him with his plan. Together, they organised a fun outing at a nearby park. They packed a picnic, gathered some dog toys, and invited Sophia to join them. When they arrived at the park, Buddy ran around excitedly, chasing birds and barking happily. Sophia laughed and watched him, her eyes shining with joy. Jack and Emily set up the picnic and they all sat down to enjoy the beautiful day. As they ate, they talked about their favourite memories with Buddy. Sophia shared stories about how Buddy used to play with her late husband and how he was always full of energy and love. Jack and Emily laughed and shared their own stories, and they all felt a deep sense of happiness and friendship. After the picnic, Jack presented Sophia with a special gift. It was a framed photo of Buddy taken during one of their visits. Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the photo. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "This means so much to me." Buddy ran over to Sophia and licked her hand, and Sophia laughed and hugged him. Jack watched and felt grateful for the friendship they had all formed. That evening, Jack took Buddy home, feeling a mix of joy and sadness. He knew that Buddy was happy with him, but he also knew that parting ways with Sophia was hard. The next day, Jack sat down to write, feeling inspired by the special day they had shared. He wrote about friendship, love, and the joy that Buddy had brought into their lives. He knew that the little dog had created something special, and he wanted to share that with the world. Jack continued to visit Sophia with Buddy, and they remained close friends. He also grew closer to Emily, and they began to spend more time together, enjoying their shared love for animals and their friendship with Sophia. Jack felt grateful for the unexpected gift that Buddy had brought into his life, and he looked forward to the future with joy and hope. Jack's life was filled with new adventures now that Buddy was a permanent part of it. With Sophia's blessing, Jack felt free to enjoy his time with Buddy and embrace the joy that the little dog brought into his life. He often visited Sophia and always brought Buddy along. They would have tea in the garden, chatting and laughing, while Buddy played happily. Jack also spent more time with Emily, and they started a routine of walking Buddy together. They would stroll through the neighborhood, chatting about their day and their dreams. Buddy loved these walks, and Jack found himself looking forward to them too. One day, Jack and Emily took Buddy to a new park they had heard about. The park was beautiful, filled with green trees and flowers. Buddy ran around barking happily and exploring every corner. Jack and Emily sat on a bench, watching Buddy and talking about their plans for the future. "I'm thinking of adopting a dog," Emily said with a smile. "Buddy has made me realize how much I miss having a pet." Jack laughed and said, "I think that's a great idea. Buddy would love to have a friend." As they talked, Jack realized how much Emily meant to him. He felt a deep sense of happiness and contentment. They were building something special, and Jack was excited about the future. Back at his apartment, Jack felt inspired to write. He sat down at his desk with Buddy curled up beside him and began working on his novel. The words flowed easily, and Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose and joy. A few weeks later, Jack's novel was finished. He felt proud of his work and sent it to his publisher with a sense of hope. He knew that Buddy had been the inspiration for his story, and he was excited to share it with the world. Jack and Emily continued to visit Sophia regularly. They would spend time together, laughing and talking, while Buddy played in the garden. They became like a little family, and Jack felt grateful for the unexpected gift that had brought them together. One evening, Jack sat down to write again, feeling happy and content. He looked at Buddy, who was lying on the floor, and smiled. "You're a special dog, Buddy," he said. "You've brought so much joy into my life." Buddy wagged his tail and barked happily, and Jack felt a deep sense of love and gratitude. He knew that he was starting a new chapter in his life, filled with love, friendship, and new beginnings. Jack's novel was finally published, and he was excited to see how people would respond to his story. The book, inspired by Buddy and his adventures, was full of love, laughter, and joy. Jack dedicated the book to Sophia, Buddy, and Emily, who had all become important parts of his life. The day of the book's release, Jack felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He wasn't sure how people would react to his story, but he hoped they would enjoy it as much as he enjoyed writing it. Emily and Buddy joined him for breakfast, and they laughed and talked about what the future might hold. "Whatever happens, you've written a wonderful story," Emily said with a smile. "You should be proud of yourself." Jack smiled and hugged her. "Thank you, Emily," he said. "I couldn't have done it without you and Buddy." Later that day, Jack went to visit Sophia with Buddy and Emily. They brought along a copy of the book, which Jack had signed for Sophia. Sophia's eyes lit up when she saw the book. "Oh, Jack, it's wonderful!" she exclaimed. She hugged him tightly and then read the dedication. "To Sophia, Buddy, and Emily, the best friends a writer could ask for," she read aloud, her eyes shining with tears. Jack smiled, feeling a deep sense of happiness and contentment. "You've all been such a big part of my life," he said. "I wanted to share my joy with you." Sophia looked at Jack and Emily, and she smiled warmly. "You've done a wonderful thing, Jack," she said. "We're all so proud of you." As they sat together, talking and laughing, Jack felt grateful for the unexpected gift that Buddy had brought into his life. He knew that he had found something special, and he was excited to share it with the world. That evening, Jack and Emily took Buddy for a walk, and they talked about their future plans. Jack felt excited and hopeful. He knew that his life was full of love, friendship, and new adventures. Back at his apartment, Jack looked at the first copy of his book and smiled. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter in his life, and he was ready to embrace it with open arms. Jack's novel quickly became popular, and he was thrilled to see his story resonate with so many people. Readers loved Buddy's character and the adventures he inspired. The book brought joy to many, just as Buddy had brought joy into Jack's life. Jack's success brought new opportunities, and he began receiving invitations to book readings and signings. He invited Emily to join him on these events, and she happily agreed. Together they travelled to different cities, sharing Jack's story and meeting fans who loved Buddy just as much as they did. One day, while Jack and Emily were preparing for a book signing, Jack received a call from Sophia's daughter, Laura. She sounded worried. "Jack, my mum isn't feeling well," she said. "She's been asking for you and Buddy." Jack felt a pang of concern. He cancelled the book signing and rushed to the retirement home with Buddy and Emily. When they arrived, they found Sophia lying in bed, looking tired but smiling warmly at them. "Hello, my dear friends," Sophia said, her voice weak but filled with love. "I'm so happy to see you." Jack sat beside her, holding her hand. "We're here for you, Sophia," he said softly. Buddy jumped up on the bed, snuggling close to Sophia. She smiled and petted him, her eyes shining with joy. "You've always been my best friend, Buddy," she said lovingly. Sophia looked at Jack and Emily, her expression filled with gratitude. "Thank you for being my family," she said. "You've brought so much joy into my life." Jack felt tears in his eyes as he looked at Sophia. He realized how much she meant to him and how they had become a unique family. They spent the rest of the day with Sophia, talking, laughing, and sharing memories. A few days later, Sophia passed away peacefully, surrounded by her family and friends. Jack, Emily, and Buddy were there with her, holding her hand and telling her how much they loved her. It was a bittersweet moment, filled with love and sadness. Jack and Emily continued to visit the retirement home after Sophia's passing, bringing Buddy to cheer up the other residents. They knew that Sophia would have wanted them to keep spreading joy and love. Through their experiences, Jack and Emily grew closer, and they realized that they had created a unique and loving family with Buddy. They knew that they were beginning a new chapter in their lives, filled with love, friendship, and new adventures. Jack continued to write, inspired by the love and joy that Buddy and Sophia had brought into his life. He knew that their unique family would always hold a special place in his heart, and he looked forward to the future with hope and excitement. After Sophia's passing, Jack, Emily, and Buddy continued to visit the retirement home. They brought joy and comfort to the residents, just as they had done with Sophia. The little dog, with his wagging tail and bright eyes, quickly became a favorite among the elderly. Jack's novel was doing well, and he felt proud of what he had accomplished. He dedicated his next book to Sophia, writing about the love and friendship that she had inspired. The book became a success, and Jack knew that Sophia would have been proud of him. Jack and Emily grew closer, and they often talked about their future together. They shared a love for animals and a passion for helping others. One day, while walking in the park with Buddy, Jack turned to Emily and said, "I can't imagine my life without you." Emily smiled and replied, "I feel the same, Jack." Jack smiled and took out a small box from his pocket. Inside was a beautiful ring. "Emily," he said, "will you marry me?" Emily's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes, Jack," she said, "I will marry you." Buddy barked happily and jumped up to lick their faces. Jack laughed and hugged Emily, feeling a deep sense of joy and contentment. Jack and Emily had a small wedding with their closest friends and family. Buddy was their ring bearer, and he looked adorable in his tiny tuxedo. The ceremony was filled with love and laughter, and Jack felt grateful for the wonderful life he had found. After their wedding, Jack and Emily moved into a new house with Buddy. They started a small animal rescue together, helping dogs and cats find new homes. Jack continued to write, inspired by the love and joy that filled his life. One evening, Jack sat down to write, with Buddy curled up beside him and Emily reading a book nearby. He looked at his family and felt a deep sense of happiness. He knew that he had found his happily ever after, and he looked forward to the future with excitement and love. Jack's next novel, inspired by their story, became another hit. He dedicated it to Buddy, Emily, and Sophia, knowing that they had brought something special into his life. Together, Jack, Emily, and Buddy lived happily ever after, surrounded by love, friendship, and new adventures.